Hi guys, I'm Bri.
And I'm Alli. This is Offscript.
If you think about it, books are potential scripts for movies.
When this adaptation happens, typically it's disappointing because they went off script.
In this series, we will be talking about how off script they went.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
To today's mini-sode.
We told you it was going to be a fun one.
We did. I'm Alli.
And I'm Bri.
And oh my gosh.
We just got done talking with Lizzie Molyneux-Logelin and Wendy Molyneux.
So Lizzie and Wendy are co-writers on Bob's Burgers.
And The Great North.
Yes. They were also producers for the Bob's Burger movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. Oh, and Bob's Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
And The Great North. So they produce and they write for it. How
I'm
cool is
pretty
that?
sure The Great North they actually created.
They did. They said that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Yes.
So
It's pretty exciting.
we feel pretty special that they
A
said
little bit.
yes to come on our measly little podcast.
I know. Thanks for adapting a book and wanting to talk to us, guys.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it.
And if you recognize the name Logelin, it's Matt Logelin from
Two Kisses from Maddie.
or Fatherhood. He hooked us up.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Yes.
Appreciate ya.
I know. It was so sweet.
I'm still flabbergasted.
I know.
I'm still like, what just happened?
Yeah, when we did his interview, he's like, hey, my wife and her sister just finished doing
Adapting
two
People We Hate
Thank you.
at the Wedding. Goodness, you were going to say Two Kisses.
I was like, that's not it. And so he said, if you guys do that adaptation, let me know and I'll get them on your podcast. And so what Bri do immediately bumped something.
Well, I didn't want him to forget. I was like, I got to do it sooner rather than later. And if I make this like something that's in 2 years, I'm going to send him an email and he's going to be like, what?
Who are you? Yeah. No, I'm glad you did it sooner because it was such a fun read.
It really was.
Watch.
Yeah.
Listen.
Read and listen.
Yes. And so this was a fun little chat we got to have.
Yeah. So now we've interviewed an author and now we've interviewed a screenwriter.
Couple screenwriters.
Yeah. It was super fun. We asked them about the nitty gritty of adapting a book to a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was fun with Matt because we learned the book side and now we got to do the flip and it's really opened my eyes and be like, oh, okay. Like I know
she might not be so hard on movies.
I know. Like I've been trying to be lighter with facts that Bri have said, but now when it comes, because she's been on the film part of it, but now we got the writer's part of it too, and it's like, oh, it's making a little bit more
sense why things get changed.
Yeah, so we hope you guys
enjoy this conversation that we had with them.
Yeah, because we sure did.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to Offscript. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Wendy Molyneux.
I'm Lizzie Molyneux-Logelin. I don't know why I waved. No one could see that. But
That was for us.
Yes.
I felt greeted.
I want to make sure everyone knows I'm here.
Yes. They're such special ladies because we just on Monday released The People We
hate at the wedding.
And these are the lovely writers of the screenplay.
Yes, it was fun. I watched the movie before I read the book, and then
I read the book first. So we try and do, we have this theory that if whichever one you do first, you like better. It was not true in my case because the movie was fantastic. I loved it.
yeah.
Do you like the movie?
Oh yeah, the movie was way better than the book.
The book was really good.
I think if you have the author on, you have to say the book was better. You know? It's clearly a scam, and I understand what's happening here. So I just want to say, you'll also read the book. I mean, because they're looking at our faces. Imagine they were just like saying, "I liked it better," you know. Then that would be a tough. That'd be a tough Zoom. So let's all take this all with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt.
Well, okay. My reasoning is that I prefer comedies. And so I love your guys' twist on, because it was more of a serious story with like comedy elements in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you guys stretched out the comedy and you added comedy to it. So I really appreciate that. And I loved it.
Yeah. I also really love the cast. The cast is great for the movie too.
It was a great cast.
Really lucky.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, we were super excited with the cast that came together. It was a really fun process. As each person kind of got added in, we were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Alice and Janney. I can't believe Kristen, like everyone. So it was fun.
Okay, that's not a question we had for you, but does that kind of like, did you have pictures of who you wanted to be cast, or was it like, we'll write this person and whoever gets cast?
Well, I think that, the fact that a book existed, we were, trying to write characters similar to the characters in the book. I do think you always try to, I think a handy like writing tip is, if you're doing a character and you can't quite drill down on them, in some ways thinking about who is that actor, who you picture as that can really help you refine the voice. So it's not, if it's feeling mushy to you at all. I wouldn't say that. I would say the people that wound up getting cast would be in the neighborhood for sure of what we were thinking of. I don't want to say if there are any specific differences, but because there's always like those surprising castings where you're like, oh, they're perfect. Like, but I wouldn't have even known they were available or want to do something like that. So, I think it's but I think they wound up casting it really well. Lizzie, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say, a pretty similar answer. I think I always try to think of someone, even when we're writing something, from scratch and we don't have, you don't really have that character sort of already outlined for you like you do. And then when you're adapting, I do tend to think of an actor or even like just a character from like an actor that is a character in another movie, if that makes sense. Just like,
you're like, oh, I like this character.
Yeah, like a specific voice as you're trying to, create the character, I think is always helpful. But it's always interesting to see how the casting process works. And a lot of times it is like who's available or people know people or, it's definitely was interesting to see it in progress because we hadn't really been through that experience before. So it was fun to see how it came out, and we had a fantastic cast. So.
Yes. Awesome.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I want to know, did you guys read the book before you signed on to adapt it? Or was this just kind of like, oh, this is a chance, let's do it?
Yeah, we both read the book. We both read. Yeah. I think I read it a couple times. You always want to feel like, okay, we could do this material.
Yeah, that's good, actually, because I feel like a lot of times with some of the adaptations we've covered, we don't know if the book has been read by the people writing the script, because they're like,
there went the movie and there went the book. So you guys did a pretty good job of following it.
Yeah, I think sometimes they differ so greatly that it, sometimes, I mean, I've certainly read things and then seen the movie and you're like, it feels almost that not connected really, but
two completely different
curious
things.
how those processes happen. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. One of my favorite book series is the Divergent series. And the first book movie adaptation is okay, but then they just like split the story so much that I just am like, how do you do that to a fan base that's following this series and then decide like, oh, I just want to write this?
Right. It was very different.
Yeah, that's interesting when it is a big book like that too. Like that series was really popular, I remember. And I think I read a couple of them. And so, yeah, I don't know that I kept up with the movies. So I don't think I was aware of the differences. But I think it's different when a property is so visible and so many people have read it. Like, I think in some ways it can be hard to watch those movies that are really faithful because you do know, like, Girl with Dragon Tattoo, like watching it, it's like, okay, I do actually already know everything that's gonna happen here. So it's like, it's tough, but had they differed from the book too much, people would have been furious. Like, how did murderer or whatever. So I think that's a tricky line to walk.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. As a fan, I was not happy with the Divergent.
Well, your guys was fun because you've had the main concepts throughout the whole story, but then like we said, you added extra fun twists. Like we love that Dennis was in the whole movie, the love story, because reading it first or watching
watching it first, Dennis got introduced and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. Like, this is one of my favorite storylines. This is going to be great. And then he wasn't in the rest of the book. I was like, hold on. Wait, that's the best part.
So we loved extra stuff like that. Okay, so can you describe your take on creative adaptation? How do you take a book and then decide what you want to keep,
what to change?
I mean, I think for us, it was, I think it's when we read the book and, went in and sort of had our take on it, sort of our pitch for it when we went in to present it. And so I think it was for us thinking about when we read it, what were the things that really felt like we wanted to carry through that really, like, I guess, anchored the story. And then thinking about like the romance, I think both of us are pretty big romantic comedy fans. So I think we felt like that was a piece that you wanted to carry through the movie, and that would, kind of keep people interested, and you have that romance angle that I think we're really drawn to. So that was definitely one thing. And then I think, it was, I guess, the book obviously has so much in it, and it's books usually are much longer than what you're going to do as you move forward with a movie. So naturally, some of it just has to fall out. A lot of it's, backstory or certain scenes that you feel like you can drop and still keep the overall feel of the story. So I think that's where we started, was just what were the pieces we really loved, and then what was the elements that we felt like we needed to add in to make sure it would feel fun and like keep the audience, sort of captivated with it for the movie.
Yeah, I think you're always thinking about that 3-act structure. You're always thinking about those terms. And I think that, that those guideposts, although somewhat flexible, are there for a reason. So when you're reading a book, I'm sure there are some books that, if I really thought about it, do naturally split into those 3 acts in some ways, but it's few and far between. So you're really taking something that, books can follow whatever narrative structure they want at all. And really, as you go, even from your first read of a property, I think it's always thinking about that beginning, middle, and end in a way that you just naturally do when you're a feature writer, and then it's interesting because this was such a bigger, longer book. We've done I think it's still possibly may someday get made, but we did an adaptation of this children's book called Princess in Black. I'm not sure where they're at with it now, but I mean, it's a very short book. It has, almost, it's for kids. So it has a very short, basic narrative. So in that case, it's like, it's interesting. I think we actually worked on those both the same year. One was about paring down or simplifying, and the other one was about popping it out into this much bigger, wilder narrative. And so it's, the movie structure is there for a reason. You can get anything into it. You have to just have to be thoughtful about what's going to fit and how to get the audience to those emotional moments at those turns effectively, no matter what the length of the original property was. You can't cheat it.
So. Right. Which would you prefer in this case, like being able to add in more or paring
I think
down?
I like to make shit up. I'll take a shorty. I'll take like an idea. I mean, I also think in some ways that's how most TV writing or movie writing begins with nothing, and so I think it's like much closer to how you're used to working. But I know, some people I know are very like adaptation is their thing. And so they could read a 700-page novel probably and really see the clear path to making that. I think it's a newer skill for Lizzie and I think we're used to starting from zero a little more. So I think probably popping out. But Lizzie, I don't know. How do you feel? Would you like to adapt a 700-page novel? Oh, wait, she didn't hear me, maybe.
Oh, sorry. I froze for a second. I am back, but I think
you're the opposite of me and you're looking forward to adapting a 700-page novel.
No, I am not. All I heard was 100-page novel, and then it felt like a very
100-page novel, maybe.
Pause directed at me.
All pauses are directed at you.
It's a good role to stick with, like keep that in my head. Yeah, I think it is a tricky skill, I think, to go from more to less and just, have so much to to squeeze in and sort of reshape into
Yeah.
your vision of a movie. I think it's definitely easier to add. So I would probably agree with Wendy on that one. But it was an interesting challenge for us, and I think it would be. I think we learned a lot from the experience. I think it would be fun to do it again at some point. But I think it is a challenge. I think because I think everyone has that experience of reading books and seeing movies. And I think it's a really difficult thing to say, like, wow, I really love this book and I really love the movie version of it too. I think usually it's, you prefer one or the other. And often they're so different that it's hard to even compare. But I do think that's a really tricky thing to nail, sort of how a book feels when you're reading it, and translate that to screen. So
Yeah. Definitely.
I guess, how do you make that decision on what gets cut? Like you said, like there's only so much time, but when you have to come down to it, how do you decide?
I think it's for us, it was really drilling down on, Alice, Paul, and Mom, and then Eloise once they arrive, as the main characters, and then who's the audience really latching onto, and I think that the Alice through line, the rom-com through line, because you're bringing more of that forward, means necessarily some of the other pieces might be dropping away a bit, and luckily we don't have to describe anything in a movie.
Right.
A lot of books are really painting a visual picture, whereas we're like, okay, well, they're going to put this on film, so we don't need to describe like what a foot looks like. Everybody knows.
Right.
So that's that really helps. And I think it's, just paring down to character stuff. I think it's events and character as opposed to description. And so I think a lot of the, some of the other pieces just naturally fall away, or things that are going to take, that are great in the book, but that would take up pages and pages and pages. Generally a movie scene is about 3 pages. So if you're going past that, if there's something super complex, you might think about, okay, what's the slimmed down version of this, or how to make it a sequence with little mini scenes within it. Things like that can be helpful. If it feels like, okay, this is impossible to tackle visually, that's a good thing to say, how can we do this differently? Or does this naturally kind of fall away? So that's one way. I'm sure though, definitely writers who do it so many different ways.
I think the tricky part is some of it, I think in the book, there's a lot of backstory. And so that's often, it's hard to cover. It's such a great element of a book where you can just jump around in time. You can jump backwards and go through a large section of someone's backstory and then go back to the main narrative. And it's hard to fit that into a movie script. You really want to make sure, that you really need like a flashback or something like that if you're going to do it. So I think that's also a piece where it's like, can we cover this backstory, a little bit in the present, just with like dialogue? How can we sort of pepper it in and pull it through so that we're getting it without feeling like, hey, we're giving you a full paragraph about this person's past, in a non-fun way. So that was another piece that I think we had to think hard about. How do we sort of set up this person in their past, in a way that doesn't feel like it bogs down the story? And then, I think it was also just, there's so many different character points of view in the book. And it's, it was part of it was just landing on like, okay, whose point of view is our story though? Because there's definitely a version you could do where you jump around from different people's point of views.
Right.
That
Each
feels,
character.
but that's a bigger, choice. And that's, so I think for us, it was sort of centering on where we wanted the point of view to be. And then, like, how do you sort of, they're such complex characters and you get to know so much about them. How do you keep what you really need to know? And how can you do it efficiently so that you can still have, just an hour and a half of screen time? So.
Right. That's gotta be hard too. When you go into this, do you know, like, do you have a time frame? Like, does it have to be an hour and a half, or can you go the 2 hours? How do you decide that?
I think, people who are more perhaps like Oscar screenwriters feel they can push past the 2 hours. And I'm sure there's certainly a project we could do that. I do think comedies sit a little more happily between 91 minutes and 110 minutes. I just think past that, you might be straining things a little bit in terms of there's just something about that length that tends to feel right for a comedy. I think serious movies, and then there are movies that just really break the break the mold in every possible way, and go longer. And I think like a lot of times you see that with foreign films, that really work because they tend to like maybe have a different ethos in terms of like getting butts and seats or what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. It's a comedy. It's German. I'm going to think of it real quick. It's really long. It's a name. Guys, I'm going to think of it.
You think of it.
Think of it while you go on. But I do think that you can go longer than that. I think people get a little worried when you turn in something that's like 100 and, if it was 120 pages and you turned it in for a comedy, I think maybe just as writers, the film is called Toni Erdmann, and it is German, and it's a comedy, and I think it's really long, and I could have watched 500 more hours of it too.
Wow.
It's really interesting. I really recommend it. I do want to know the runtime on it because I remember going like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen a comedy this long. But I think it's a good model for if you're able to work outside of the, expectations of American film goers.
Yeah.
Longer. It's just that we have this kind of limited way of thinking about it. And, it's so fascinating to listen to someone Google things on a.
Don't worry. We do this on our podcast all the time.
And you want me on it to Google some stuff, I'm available. Yeah, 2 hours and 44 minutes.
Wow. That is very
for a
long.
comedy. But I recommend everyone check it out because it's like, if you are a writer, then it's like it's a different way to think about things, is that you can do these longer things. It's just we have this limited way of thinking. And Lizzie and I are people pleasers, so it's really hard for us to do something at an unexpected length. We'd have to be drunk maybe. To get really wasted and turn in a 127 page long. And then it's like, the question is, were we drunk the whole time we wrote it or
just when you turn it in?
Yeah. It's like, we have kids. We probably can't be drunk. That's like a full year. So I don't know. I don't think it's a good plan for us. I guess the upshot is that's a bad plan for us. But for the writer of Toni Erdmann, maybe that worked.
It worked.
So does it take like a year to write a script? I don't know. I'm not in the industry at all, so I don't know anything.
I mean, I think the actual sitting, it's not like we sit down and just turn out the whole draft in one sitting. But I think, the accomplishing a draft of it doesn't take necessarily that long. It's probably more like, 8 to 12 weeks.
Okay.
But I think, from this, and this one was probably longer because we probably had a considerable amount of time with the book before we even went back in to meet on it. But it's quite a process because you'll pitch the, sort of your take on it. And then usually there's, a couple steps or meetings before you actually go off and write the script. So, whether it's, outline or there's some sort of breakdown of the story, and then, you do your first draft, you usually have notes. So it is quite a process. I think this one was probably at least a year. I think it was more.
Wow.
Yeah, I think all in, it's probably more, because then once you have it done and it's in, and then they use it to get a director and get cast, you're going to do more notes on it. So like once Film Nation had approved the script, they attach a director, and the director is going to have a few notes, and then you do those notes, and then they attach cast. And if you have cast members like Kristen Bell or Allison Janney, and Kristen didn't give a ton of notes, but she had like 3 little thoughtful notes about the script. And it's like, I'm sure there's some people who are like, no, I'm not doing any more notes, or that actor can't tell me how to write. But like, I mean, Kristen's so smart and, so funny that it's like, she just had 3 little things. Like one thing didn't feel right for her character. And I think it's always a good idea to take those things into consideration. And so there were definitely, like, even after the movie was getting made, and also then it got acquired by Amazon. So then you have a round of notes from Amazon who wants this a little more, this a little less. So it can be a really long time. The movie business is a bit wild. Like Lizzie and I are working now on attaching a director and doing some notes for something we literally wrote in 2009. So it gives you some sense of how long the movie business can play out. I mean, you do see sometimes, a book that came out in the 1970s is getting an adaptation now. And you might think, oh, well, somebody went back and found it or whatever. But there's also the possibility for real that it has been in some form of development on and off for 50 years. I mean, it truly happens.
Wow.
We worked on so many projects where, it's an older book. Like we did one that was sort of a self-help book from the 90s. We were doing a comedic take on it. We worked on it in probably 2015 or 16. And they're probably that it didn't go at the time, but they may have attached new writers and be doing a whole other take on it now. And it's from the 90s. So it's like when you say, how long does it take? It's like personally writing a screenplay. Like I think the shortest we've ever written one in is probably like 1 to 3 months when it was an original idea. And we were like, let's just blast through this. But if it's something where people are giving notes, I would say a year is the short end of how long it takes.
Wow.
And you two write everything together, right? Or basically everything?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. How's that process?
Like fun.
It's
what
fun.
I mean, we hate it. It's like a real twist to this Zoom.
It's interesting. I mean, I think we've been writing together for 20, almost 20 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. And obviously we've been TV writers for a good majority of that. So we've been on Bob's Burgers since it started, and now we created and run The Great North. So I think our TV writing is like very much down to a system where we usually split up the script and like one of us writes, act 1, and then the next one does act 2, and then act 3 and act 4. So that is very much, we obviously break the story together and do, all the sort of steps leading up to script very much at the same time together. We're often together at the office during that process. And then when we go out to write, we kind of just like write on our own and then send each other stuff. And I think for feature scripts, I think it's a little bit more of we try to work together a little bit more because I think it's harder to take bigger sections of something like a feature and just do it on your own. But, depending on our time and what time it is, our lives and our children, we do still split a fair amount of it up. And then we kind of just, each person, as you get the next section that someone's written, we'll go back through and make our edits in there and then keep going. So that's our usual process is, I think we write separately probably more than other writing teams. But it tends to work for us. And then we always go through together, at the end when we have a draft, and we'll go through together and kind of close it out and make fixes. Yeah. But that's our general process.
Yeah. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I don't have a sibling, so I wouldn't know, but that's got to be fun.
Yeah, my brother and I kind of like grew up and then drifted apart. And now we're starting to do like sibling days once a month. I'm like, I just imagine like, man, if we were like this close, like for 20 years, that would have been so fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And I think it's been fun when we've had, some, projects where we get to really kind of work together and I think it's how quick the deadline is sometimes how much like if we're working together and just sitting around and having, some more fun, or if we're like, oh, we got to kind of get through this.
Right. Crack down.
Yeah.
Okay. So we always talk about this, about how sometimes in movies versus books, the smallest detail
gets changed. One of my biggest pet peeves is in The Shining. The room number gets changed. And I'm like, why did you change? We found out it's because they filmed at an actual like hotel and it wanted that door. But I'm like, you couldn't have just had like prop make some new numbers for you.
Right.
What?
And so we noticed that in your guys' adaptation, a lot of little things got changed. And so what were your thoughts with that? So like Alice, her aspiring job was changed, or Dominic versus Mark were changed.
Some of it is practicalities. Like if there's a lot of short names like Paul, Mark, do you know what I mean? Like you sort of want to have character differentiation. So a lot of times when you see character names change in a book, you're seeing the names over and over again. it's in this like sort of page context with the other, but like say somebody just refers to them out loud. If you're in a movie, it's short. You've only lived with this a short time and you've never visually seen the name. There's a bunch of people named like Paul, Mark, Greg, and Dave. You're like, wait,
which one is which?
Like, whereas Dominic has 3 syllables, it's long. You're not going to forget it. Like it's a lot of things like that. And then other things could just go to, you know, sort of like where that character is, you know, differentiating too. I think in the book, and sorry, it's now been so long because like 2017, like originally it was something involving marketing or film. Is that right?
Yeah. She wanted to be a film.
So it's like film within a film is sort of like putting a hat on a hat. So if you're watching a movie and someone wants to be in the movies, unless it's specifically about that, like swimming with sharks or, you know, I don't know, Hollywood Babylon, or like if that's the topic of it, then you buy it. If your person in the movies wants to be in the movies, I feel like your head is like, hold on, that sandwich is eating a sandwich. Like it's just like somehow doesn't, you know, it doesn't work. So I think it's usually little practical things like that. And then some things change, you know, kind of later because of the director saying, hey, we cannot do that. Like, you know, there's some little thing that practically cannot be filmed, or they're just in a location, they have a limited budget and limited time that day is, hey, can they do this in the lobby instead of this other thing? Hey, can they eat this type of food instead of that type of food? Can this other character be there? And we work these 2 scenes together. So a lot of things are just practical considerations. And I feel like I always watch movies now that I've been through that, because this was the first thing we got filmed, right, Lizzie? So it's like, now that I've been through that and gotten those emails and stuff like that, I'm always like, I do feel like in general, also, I'm more generous towards the movies now that I understand a little more now, having been through it. We always know that about TV and have always known it about TV, but I think going through the feature making process, and not that we weren't there for the filming and stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of decisions, people don't really care what the writer thinks. We got to on so much stuff on this movie, but that's not normal. You know, I think I approach movies with so much more generosity now, because I know in my heart whether I really liked them or disliked them, but I still now I feel like I've got a little bit of like, it's great. They made a movie. That's really hard. They did. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like everybody's mom now. I'm like, you did it. You made a movie. You know,
here's your award.
It's hard to get from beginning to end. It's hard to get the money. It's hard to get people in it. It's every piece of it is difficult. And then the director is really at the fulcrum of all that. So like anyone who directs the movie, I'm like, you did it. You directed a movie. That's crazy. Cause it's just like, it's like childbirth or something where it's like, if you did it, it doesn't matter how you did it. And in some ways now, before I would be like, oh, that's a good baby. That's not a good baby. And now it's like, oh no, they're all like, that's their baby. It's like all the movies, like you tried, it was hard and you did it. So a little different. I feel like I have a different attitude.
So I actually have a degree in film, and that's kind of how this podcast came to be, because I love editing, and that's what I am aspiring to do. So I was like, let me find ways to, you know, work on my craft. And so a podcast came up, and she's a teacher and I love books. So I was like, let's do this. So then throughout our podcast, a lot of times when she's sitting here ragging on like, why did they do this way in this movie? Why is it like this? I'm like, okay, because they have to do it like this. She's like, I still don't like it.
Well,
well, I mean, I still have those strong opinions. I just reserve like 5% of my opinion now to be like, well, but they did it. And I don't know what happened, and who knows who was involved and what they did and who gave notes and like, all that stuff. I'm like, I'm spotting them a lot more. Like, I don't, you know, I used to think everything that came on screen was like everyone's exact intentions. And instead you're like, God, they might've really had this ambition and they didn't get the budget. They might've had this actor and they dropped out. You know what I mean? So now I'm like, there's some part of me that spots them. Some like, yeah, that was terrible, but they were really trying.
You tried. You did it.
Yeah, but no, I still have, I mean, if I really got in the nitty gritty, we don't very much publicly say like, what would you like or don't like? Cause this is our business. And anyone could be a coworker. So you're like, you're never going to like, but like privately at home with my husband, I'll be like, this is exactly what I liked and didn't like about that movie. And here's my unvarnished opinion. Or to Lizzie, like at work, we'll close the door, we'll go in.
Yeah. Well, I think like it's interesting. I think that sort of like passion about movie versions of books is so real. And I think it's funny that you mentioned The Shining, because my husband and I just watched it with our oldest daughter because she read the book.
Hey,
and,
yes. Did she mention that?
She didn't mention the room number, but she did. I mean, so early, like I kind of she had so many sort of stop down moments as we were watching of like, well, why did they do this? It's not like that in the book. And she really loved the book. So I think I tried to help her. I said, I think you have to just think of them as two separate things because, also it's obviously the Stanley Kubrick movie and he's going to make his,
he's gonna do his movie. Yeah,
he's gonna do his movie. It's one of the things she was asking about was the the scene with the elevator and the blood, and it's such a I saw that movie young and it really scared me, and I remember that image being so like frightening, and it didn't sort of have the same effect on her, and she was like, I don't understand why they put it in. It's on the book, and I that was one thing I pointed to of just like I think that was probably somebody's idea. It was probably his idea, and it's just such a strong image, and it's something you have to if there's an artist taking on another piece of art to make their own version of it, they're going to inject a little bit of themselves into it too. But I think that's such a natural emotion of when you read something and you see it a certain way and you see it represented differently back to you, you're like, that's not how I thought of it. So it's
very The Shining is like my favorite Stephen King book too. And what's funny is that one, I watched the movie first because I grew up loving horror. And so I watched it pretty young. And I was like, I love this movie. Then realized as I was older, I was like, oh, it's a book. This is going to be great. And then I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? It's like so different.
Yeah.
So now it's rough.
I actually haven't read the book, so I need to read the book because I only have the movie as my I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, so the movie was already a lot for me. So
you'll have to take it chunks at a time.
Exactly.
I've been sort of doing it with my daughter. We're reading Harry Potter. She's 7, so we just started Harry Potter. Big Harry Potter nerd over here, and so we just finished the 3rd one, and so then we watched the movie. I think Saturday, and right away she's like, "Well, why they didn't do the phone call with Ron and all this sort of stuff in the movies?" I'm like, I'm so proud you paid attention as I read it to you. And so that's really sweet. She's just laying there in bed. I assume I'm just reading it to me. But then she remembered. I was like, oh. So it's fun to have kids and everybody notice differences. But yeah.
Is it easier to write your original content or to do the adaptions?
I mean, I think it's really contingent on what you're adapting. Because I think there's something so fun and free about writing your own idea, but then you have to come up with it. You are entirely responsible for it. Whereas it's sort of like sometimes you hear a book that is a good idea and your manager or someone pitches it to you and you're like, wow, what a great idea. Yeah, that'd make a great movie. And you're like, whew, I didn't even have to think of the idea. It's like, I know I have the skills to put it into the structure, but I didn't do the legwork, so in some ways it can feel much more fun and free to do your own idea. So I think it's a little of both. There's definitely been properties that have come up that Lizzie and I have been excited to pitch on. And sometimes even it's the sequel to things, early on in our career, I think we were up for Bad Teacher 2. And it was sure, more Bad Teacher. We could do that, We didn't get it, guys. But sometimes there's an idea that you feel a kinship with that you're like, oh yeah, I could get in with that. And then I think, doing your own idea, it's not pre-vetted. And so there's a lot of stuff, in the industry talk now too, where it's oh, they want stuff that's already been vetted in some way. So if it was already a graphic novel or already a book, it's they feel like there's a point of entry for the audience already. And so sometimes that's a lot of the queries you get about, do you want to write this or that? Nobody's ever going to be like, do you want to write your own original idea? That's on you.
That's true.
That you have to motivate yourself too. But it's always fun to see what people are making and consider things. And it's fun to, because we get solicited for rewrites of scripts that already exist. Sometimes that feels more a little less it's nuts and bolts. You can do it, it's a skill you have, but it's more fun in a way to have something that's a book or a comic book and say, like, how would you turn this into a movie? What is the movie version of that? Because, there's so many like touchstone movies that I love that are adaptations. And so the idea of getting to do that or taking a swing at it at least is always really fun and exciting. Like it was always like, what is Ghost World going to be? And then Ghost World, but like,
Yeah.
I was so excited when Ghost World came out and to see how did it retain that tone and, that it's a fun challenge, I think. So I think both are good. Sorry that I don't have a controversial hardline opinion.
No, that's
you're
fine. Do you have something that you would want to adapt? Like if you could right now, is there something in your head that you're like, that's absolutely what we're going to do next?
I mean, book wise, I don't know that there's something off the top of my head. I also feel like I wish I had more time to read more books so that I had a better answer. I have little kids. It's an excuse because a lot of people with little children also find time to read, but I don't find that much. I've been reading this book I'm currently reading for like 8 months.
That was her.
So when she pitched this idea of the podcast, I'm like, will you let me listen to audiobooks? And she said, fine. I was like, that's how I get through this.
That has been helping me. I have been doing that a little bit more on my commute into work is that helps a lot. But I can't think of if there's anything off the top of my head. Wendy, was there something that you had in your mind?
There's definitely some childhood things like, listen, they made Ender's Game and it did
What's
not.
funny? That is the book when I was 5. Well, okay, I think I was like 7 when I read it, but I was young when I read it. And reading it, I was like, I want to see this in a movie. And then young me was like, I want to make this movie. So then when it became a movie, I was kind of upset about that already.
They beat you to it.
Yeah, I was like, how dare they take my idea? But then I was like, okay, well, I didn't have to do the work, so let's watch it. And then, yeah.
One of my favorite things of all time, and Lizzie's too. And so like, it's like if somebody was like, you guys could write Ender's Game, we would probably just quit our jobs and leave our families and move into
live remote
for 4 years, like Ender's Game. Because I just think it is also like, and I know that guy turned out to be a little bonks, right? The author, like a lot of the authors we're talking about actually turned out to be a little bonks, and have not great opinions. It's a tough world out there.
Sadly.
But, like Ender's Game, and then there's this book I read as a kid called The Changeling. It's not the same one as the Angelina Jolie movie, and it's not the one with George C. Scott. It is a book about a girl who becomes a witch, and I loved it so much. It was like a YA, but there's also like a love interest that I feel like I was interested in. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. It's like those childhood things, I think, where I feel like if somebody was like, oh, there's a shot at this. There's this book I read, this singer named Jen Trinan wrote an autobiography about how she was sort of like not exactly a one-hit wonder, but close to what you would call a one-hit wonder. But it was about her like kind of rise and fall, I think, in the 90s as a rock musician. And that was really interesting to me just because I am a coward. I'm a not public type person. And I found her like journey really interesting, like to try to, but I also think it's like, oh, it's a great part for a woman kind of. And that always feels like, I feel like there's endless things that could say would be a great explanation. There's another sci-fi book called Aurora that I can't remember the name. Who was that author? It's very famous. I can't believe I can't remember the name of the author, but it's like about a space station that goes way out and then winds up. No, I'm not going to say the spoilers, but Aurora is a really cool sci-fi book. And Lizzie and I love sci-fi. I do think that is one thing, Lizzie, I would say that we love sci-fi. So if there was ever a sci-fi adaptation, we'd probably be all over it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've read a few sort of sci-fi skewing shorter stories and things like that, but nothing that's ever, really obviously come to fruition. So I do think that's a world that we love, and we've thrown around some original ideas for those too. But I think, Ender's Game for sure for me. I still have never seen the movie because I love the book so much, and I was just like, I can't. Heard it was not so close to the book, so I was like, I'm not gonna watch it because I know, I think that's the thing about that book. It's so like, it's so like dark and it's like very cerebral and stuff. So like when I saw, I think they kind of made it more of like an action-y, there is obviously the action
like,
piece.
Yeah. And I feel like the movie at the end, you weren't as like, whoa, wait, what?
Right.
And
yeah.
And the book, I just remember reading that ending. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, that book blew my mind. I was like 8 or something. And I was like, I had never, read or seen or heard of anything like that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was impactful. But yeah.
Okay, our final main question is, how often were you guys on set or talking, not necessarily on set, but like talking to the director as the movie or cast or whoever as the movie was being created?
Or like, is it once the script's written, you give it off and you're done?
That's often the case. We got to have more touch points with this movie. Lizzie, I'm going to plug my computer in. So
No, yeah, that is often the case. I think that you're just sort of, the movie kind of goes off and you wave goodbye and you see it when it comes out. The director and the Claire Scanlon and the execs that we worked with, actually they were so wonderful, and they even wanted us to come be a part, be there on set. It was filmed in London, and I had just had a baby, and Wendy was working on our show. We couldn't go, but
a remote link up one time. It was still, I think everyone was vaccinated, but it was the first year of vaccines too. So I think it was a tough year to think about, like, okay, I'm going to travel there, even because I was like, maybe I could go for a week, but I was like, what if I get COVID and then I come back and Lizzie just had a baby? She can't run the show. If I have COVID, I can't run the show. Like, so it was like a really tricky situation. Also, I was like, oh, I could get stuck over there if I get sick. So it was like, we did the remote link up, but then they did reshoot some scenes back here in LA, and we got to be there for that, which was cool. That was great. It was like, we got a little bit of time on set and meeting everybody and all that. And that was really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Did you guys ever interact with the author, or was?
Yeah.
He's awesome. Really nice guy.
He's great. Yeah. We got to see, I think we'd been messaging with him, just throughout the process. Just, I think he read the script at some point, and then when some of the casting was happening, we would just communicate on, just DMs on Twitter or whatever. And then we actually got lunch. I think it was after the movie came out. My brain is fuzzy, but he's great. He's super.
Before. I think it was after it was shot, but before it came out.
Okay, yeah, but he's great. He's super funny.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did he give you guys the approval?
Good job.
Or was he like, why'd you do this?
No, I think if he was like, why'd you do this? He never would have.
We would not have heard it.
All right, we've got some fun wrap-up questions for you. Yeah. So first, favorite book to film adaptation?
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna say I feel like it's like a I don't know why I feel like this is a cheat. It's not. It is a book, and then they made movies of it. But I love Pride and Prejudice. I love the book. I read it when I was young, and I love the movie. And to me, it's like, again, I do feel that there's a separation in my brain of the miniseries and the movie. But I think I love every version of Pride and Prejudice that exists.
Well, that's good.
I love Pride and Prejudice. The Sense and Sensibility adaptation by Emma Thompson is incredible. Devil Wears Prada is an all-time classic for me. I'm in the rom-com zone here. And then I guess we're just in the book to film realm, eh? And then I will say I never read the book, but I just saw Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer's movie, and it is, everyone should see it. It's very difficult, it's about the Holocaust, but it is. I wish everyone was being mandated to see it in some ways, just because it's about ignoring suffering and remembering a cultural debt. And I don't know. I haven't read the book, so I don't know that whereas the other ones I'm talking about, I think I have read the books. I won't swear to it, but okay. But yeah, that's a recent one that I do think everyone should see. It's heavy. Obviously. Should see is like, you know, I don't know. Yes, everyone should see it. I'll say. And I don't know if Tony Erdmann is an adaptation. Maybe it's my
We'll have to look into it for you.
I know. Okay. Then I'm going to make you guys watch a long German movie and read along.
We'll be like, wait a minute, what do we get into?
Yeah. This has been 6 months since we had an episode.
Feel free.
Oh my God. Is it a book?
Is it?
I don't know. I'm checking.
I love this. You need a little music to play every time and now Wendy is Googling.
Back in the Google. No, I think it's just, no, somebody wrote a book about it.
Oh, okay.
I do want to hear if you guys like that movie though. I mean,
okay.
I'll watch it. I promise. Although my friend Greg at work hated it and we got in an argument about it. So he gave it a spicy argument.
Okay. Feel free to say pass because we don't want any stepping on any toes. But do you have a least favorite book to film adaptation?
Well, I accidentally already said it. My sights are so high for Ender's Game. So I think it's just because childhood book, favorite book as a child. Yep. And then when the movie didn't do it, no offense to anyone who made the movie. Again, you made a movie, guys. Congratulations. Great job. But it didn't quite get there for me. I think that was the general critic consensus and audience. So I'm not breaking new ground here, but I think, and again, but I don't mean to harsh on anyone. I hate to say anything negative, but I would love to see another Ender's Game is I guess what I'm getting at.
I agree. You can do that. I got this. I'm back in.
It's tough. And again, I don't want to step on too many toes. I will say for me, and I don't think it's the book or the adaptation's fault, but I would say the second Bridget Jones movie because I love the first one so much.
First one's amazing.
And I think what I love is just that at the end she's with what's his name, Colin Firth.
I agree.
And then in the second one they break up for a little bit and I was like, I don't like this. I don't want this. But that's the same as the book. So it's not really anybody's fault. It's just me. I was like, this story ends with them together. And then they I don't want anymore.
That's it.
It's because he's Darcy.
Right. Yes.
Why are you leaving Darcy?
To me, I was like, no, this would never happen. I'm so sorry.
And so then a movie that you wish was a book? That's a harder question.
Well, I'm going to say Tony Erdmann, guys. I only have one answer on this podcast today. And that is Tony Erdmann.
I don't know. I mean, to me, I guess it would I'd probably go with see now, am I going to embarrass myself when this was a book? I don't even know. But I do love sci-fi. So I feel like I'd pick Moon or something like that, one of those weird psychological sci-fi ones, which I don't think it was a book, but it could have been. But I did love that movie, and I was like, this could be a really good 900-page book of just this man's experience.
The Martian was another good adaptation.
That's a great one.
Okay. I haven't read that book actually, but I really liked that movie.
It's a very fun book. It's like a one-day read. Do you know what I mean? If you're going on a plane, well, maybe not a plane, but a train. It feels like you're in the air. You don't want to read them.
I was just going to say, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. But on a train, when you're on a train, you can read The Martian. It's light. It's very light.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. What is your favorite book?
Ever. It doesn't have to be an adaptation.
Yeah. Just favorite book.
This is really going to put me in a spin.
Yeah, this is
all time. I mean, I feel like such a basic loser. It might be The Great Gatsby.
Hey, that's my favorite book.
I just feel like I should have I feel like I should just have some off the beaten path answer. Yeah. And instead it's Great Gatsby. I love The Great Gatsby.
It's a great book. I love that book.
Also, you tend to read it when you're very impressionable and unrequited love sounds fun, and later you find out wrong answer. Yes. But at the time, and you just want to be in a mansion longing for someone.
I know, it sounds great.
Yeah,
let me see the green light.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is my favorite book. Oh, that's so hard, and I feel like I'm also gonna say the title wrong, but I'm firing on all cylinders here, guys. But I really love Never Let You Go, or is it Never Let Me
Oh,
Go?
I love
Now
that
I'm
book.
confusing it, which is also
Never Let You Go.
yes,
Yeah.
which they also made into a movie, which I felt was very beautiful and well done, and acting was amazing. But to me, it didn't like the book is so like it's just so full of these characters' lives, and I think it was just impossible to get that much into the movie version. Like you know, it's also so much just like inner dialogue from the characters that you just can't, it's hard to do. You don't want to do like a full voiceover for the movie.
We say that a lot on our podcast.
Yes.
We're like, this is all inner monologue, guys. So there's no way to show that.
Right.
Yeah. But I do really love that book. Probably one of my favorite
answer
books.
to Lizzie's answer. Just kidding.
Yes. Perfect. Our final question is, what is your favorite movie? Yeah, that's a hard one too.
Oh my God.
Favorite movie. I have like a top right now. My current favorite movie is Lizzie. You know what I'm gonna say. My current favorite movie. It is another name of a person. My current movie is Jean Dielman, 23 Commerce Quay, 1080 Brussels. It is a over 3-hour movie.
Wow.
From
you like the long one.
Movie. I do love a long movie. It's a Belgian movie from 1975 by female director Chantal Ackerman.
Okay.
It's incredible. It's the best thing I've ever seen. So I do recommend you watch it.
Okay. Well,
that's my current favorite, but that's also like in the like sort of art movie category, current favorite.
Okay.
Like I have a lot of, I have so many, like, I think MI 4, 5, and 6. Mission Impossible 4, 5, and 6. That's going to be my favorite, like, genre spy action movie. Like, you got to go categories. I love to watch movies. So I could go on all day with my different categories. Like rom-com, Devil Wears Prada, Bridget Jones, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility. Those are going to be in the top 10. Lizzie.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I do have a lot. Like, I have my, like, favorite, like, I'll just watch that. Like, Wedding Singer is one of my favorite movies of all time. When I was because I watched a lot over the writer's strike, I watched a lot of movies. I rewatched this. I'm going to say this as my pick for right now. It's just I think it's like one of the best movies ever made, which is The Fugitive. I rewatched it over the strike.
It's a perfect film.
It's so perfect.
It's good.
It's a great movie. And I was just like, God, they don't make like, also just like that genre. I feel like they make very cool, like more leaning toward like spy or like Jason Bourne style movies now, where they sort of have this like baked in like character, like they have a past you don't know about or something, but they don't make that sort of, I feel like it was more of a 90s, vibe with those action movies. It was a little more like Everyman, but then becomes like the action hero. And I just love that one so much.
Wait, subcategory zombies, 28 days
later.
And Train to Busan is a recent fave.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Recent faves showing up in another round. Get into those. I have a whole list here in my phone.
You've watched a lot more movies than me. I'm very behind. I still haven't watched like all the movies this year. I'm just tough.
Yeah. Kids do that.
Kids. I know. I get like 1 hour. So it's like a lot of times we just do like a TV series because then I'm like, okay, I can watch one episode of Fargo easily. But a whole movie? That sounds crazy.
I have one more to recommend. It's called Between the Lines, and it's a female director, and it's from like the late 70s or early 80s, and it's really good, and it has a lot of people that you'll recognize as famous now.
Oh,
so it's kind of fun, including Jeff Goldblum.
Okay.
So.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's good. All right. Well,
all right.
This is now your time. If you guys want to promote anything to our listeners or have anything to say, go for it.
What if we had some weird manifesto? Shit, that went really wrong.
That would be really bad. Maybe I should correct
Didn't we know about her weird beliefs? Let's see. Well, please watch The Great North on Fox. on Sundays, or you can binge it on Hulu. Bob's Burgers on Fox on Sundays, or you can watch that on Hulu, all almost 300 episodes. And what else? Oh, I do a podcast with my friend David Huntsberger. That's an improv podcast called These Are Those Tapes. It's just improvised stuff. We have guests like Martha Kelly and Wyatt Cenac and Paul Rust, and it's just sort of a goof. Lizzie, what do you want to
I have
something outside of our
nothing
partnership that you need to promote?
No, I have no life outside of our partnership to promote at all. But you can also watch The People We Hate at the Wedding.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
On Amazon. And also everyone should read the book because it's delightful.
Yes.
And
reading is fundamental.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I love reading.
My favorite.
Says the person that doesn't have a kid.
Right. Audiobooks are great too.
I will. My dad is a fan of Bob's Burgers. And so when I told him, he was like, oh, can you tell them I'm a fan?
Your dad were a fan of fathers.
Yeah.
Shout out to him.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you. And we have extra thank yous because with just coming back from the writer's strike and the actor strike and everything, you guys I know are swamped right now, I'm sure. So the fact that you carved out a little bit of time for us really means a lot.
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes.
this is so fun. Thank you guys so much.
Of course. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. You guys too.
All right.
Bye.
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 Bye. All right, guys, how was that?
It was so fun.
It was amazing.
And so we just want to give another big, huge thank you to Lizzie and Wendy for taking time to talk to us little podcast.
Yeah, us little guys.
And
We had so much fun.
Yeah, we did. We hope they enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
And
Coming up.
on Monday, we got He's Just Not That Into You.
Coming up for you.
Yep. And then on Wednesday, we have The Fault in Our Stars next week. So we got some fun ones.
We've got one that's going to be interesting and one that's going to be amazing for you.
And we really hope you all liked this interview and our Monday episode of The People
We Hate at the Wedding. Thank you for listening as always, guys.
Yep. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks for sticking with us.
We hope you enjoyed it.
If you did, we would greatly appreciate it if you gave us 5 beautiful stars, reviewed, and subscribed.
You can also follow us on Facebook at Offscript, on Instagram at Offscript Podcast 21, and on TikTok at Offscript_pod.
Shout outs to Madame Ashen Creations for our adorable logo art.
And Adam Daniel for our incredible theme song.
And to Creative Cinephile Productions for producing our podcast.
See you next time.